Welcome back. I'm Ash.
I'm Elle.
We are Lovey Cosplay.
And this is Shit Cosplayers Say, and it's been a while since we've recorded.
I know. If you hear lots of fun noises in the back, our third co-host is joining us today.
Yes, he's not cooperating in being away from mom today, so he's joining us instead.
That's okay.
He's usually fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really?
He's telling you all about it.
He's going to give us his input throughout this episode today.
Yep. It's important stuff, isn't it, buddy?
It's very important. So I just finished a live panel about 2 hours ago, and so we're trying to outrun my, adrenaline rush right now.
It's all good. It was a really good panel. I thoroughly enjoyed it as an anonymous audience member because I couldn't log into our Twitch.
So I just did our self-care panel for Anime North Toronto a little bit earlier today, and it seems like it went well. It's always kind of hard to gauge when you're not actually physically in front of people.
It's so weird.
I really miss physically being in front of people. But hello to anyone that found the podcast through this panel. Welcome, Canada.
Yes, welcome, Canada.
And yes, as some people had asked us in the Twitch chat, we would love to come visit you, Canada. So if you want to see us at Anime North, let them know.
It's true.
We would come to Canada.
I would totally go to Canada. I went to Canada to LARP. I could go to Canada for a con.
We looked at Canada from afar when we were at Yoma.
Yes. We said, hello, Canada.
We didn't
from
actually
across the river.
Yes, we said hello. We did not physically go to Canada when we were at Yuma because we did not have our passports.
It's a little bit more difficult than when I used to do that. Whenever I would go, there's a city I'd go to that's right across the river when I was in college, and we would drive and then just come back to go into Missouri because we could just say that we went to Missouri that day. It's a little bit more difficult to do that to another country.
Yeah, that doesn't work as well. No, but I think it was good. I'm definitely ready for some live audience participation. This will air afterward, but we'll have gone to QuadCon in Peoria for our first in-person event since February of 2020.
Yeah, itty bitty con.
I think that's a good place to start, though, because I'm not ready for, full-on con. I think I need to get reacclimated to conventions before I can handle, a full-on convention again.
I mean, I feel like a full-on, big convention would be a lot right now after not doing it for a year and a half.
Yeah, I think QuadCon's going to be a nice, in-between warm-up to get used to the whole, interacting with other people and presenting in front of actual people. So I think it'll be good in the long run, because I don't think we have an event until possibly Anime Fusion, which is in October, since we will not be at Anime Iowa.
Tentatively, we do have a one-day appearance at
that's right.
Nerdfest.
Yes, we do have Nerdfest at the end of August, which is in Davenport, Iowa, for at least one day. So we should have at least one live presentation there. But I keep thinking live show, I think is where my brain is at. So
that'll be Fusion.
Yeah, our first live show was supposed to be Anime Iowa, but we will not be there. So if Fusion goes through, then we will be doing our next live show at Fusion. And maybe C2E2.
That'd be fun.
They haven't opened their panel programming yet.
We had a good time last year.
We did.
The audience seemed to have a good time last year.
We'll come back to Chicago.
Yeah, that was fun.
We are in the process of planning our 2022, so if you have any suggestions for conventions you would like to see us at, let us know.
Yep. As usual, you can reach us on our socials at Lavi Cosplay and Podcast SCS.
The other thing I started doing, which I never really thought I was going to get super into, but I've bought 4 now, is pre-made costumes.
I mean, it makes life simpler, for sure.
It really does, because I'm struggling with the whole, desire to finish Hinoto, so I may swap from Hinoto to Sunset Dragon's Oogie Boogie for a little while. And then
you mean
back.
We talked about in our self-care episode?
Yes. Where sometimes you just have to shake it up a little bit.
Motivation versus, what is it, volition?
Yes, motivation versus volition. So volition is making the choice to do the thing.
Look, I learned things.
Right? But sometimes you just burn out on one thing, especially if you have ADHD and you need to switch it up.
I've had that really, really bad lately of not wanting to focus on one thing for too long. And then I feel guilty because I know I should be working on other things. Alas.
It's okay to work on multiple things at once.
It's true.
Switch it up. But I'm like, I really want to get some cosplay stuff done, and I really want to do photo shoots, but like I'm not getting these handmade costumes done. So I think I just bought my like 4th purchased costume in the past like 3 months.
Hey, whatever works.
Well, Amazon had Deku's gym uniform for $27.
Oh, darn.
So I had to buy it, and then I bought Kiari. She's the student council president from Kakaguri.
Sure.
The show that's rated PG-13 but really isn't.
Wah, wah.
It's a high school, like it's a school where they like learn to gamble, and I don't know how to explain Kakaguri. It's great. But it's definitely not PG-13, even though they rate it PG-13. And then I did buy 2 Genshin outfits. We don't know when they're ever going to show up, by the way.
Someday.
Those are coming from China. I have no idea when I will actually see my Genshin costumes. But I have Ningguang and Ganyu coming at some point in time.
I don't know. I haven't ordered anything international in a long time, but the last thing I did, it was in the fall, and it took like 3 months to get here.
They do estimate around like 3 months, but this particular one said it was shipping out in May, and it hasn't. Ganyu won't ship till July, so like that one I don't expect to see for a while.
I mean, technically, at the time of this recording, it is still May.
Well, yes, at the time of this recording, it's technically still May. We have like 1 day left, but I haven't gotten any update, so I may have to contact them just to be like, when do you think you're gonna ship this? Because I ideally wanted to schedule some photo shoots with these. That's also why I want to now move to doing Oogie Boogie, because one of our local photographers is building a Tim Burton theme set for, like a Tim Burton / circus theme set for Halloween.
Please.
So now I want to finish Oogie Boogie so I can book with her. That's Honey and Ether Photography. They primarily do boudoir, but sometimes they break out into other things. She seemed pretty excited about the idea, so.
All I'm hearing now is that I need to do Halloween Town Sora too.
Please. She'd probably shoot 2 people at once.
I mean, even if she doesn't, I mean.
That's true.
It'll be fine.
Right?
Although that would be extra fun.
That would be fun. I'm sure we could work something out. This particular photography studio not only has the photographer, but also a set builder and a makeup artist all on staff. So they do this like whole big thing together. And I'm like, I want to work with them, but I don't know what I want. And then they were like, I'm building a circus / Tim Burton themed set for our Halloween set. And I'm like, that's what I want.
That's what I want in my life.
I want that in my life. So then I posted on the thread and I was like, so this means I need to finish this. And she was like, oh my God, yes, please finish that. Do that.
It's a good plan.
But I have to figure out how I want to make Oogie Boogie still. The plan is like muslin for the burlap because I actually can't handle burlap. I'm allergic to it.
Okay.
And then under the slits, I want that like color shifting organza. Yes. That goes either from like black to green or brown to green. That's what I want. And then I want the cape to be like that weird gauzy material.
I love that gauzy material.
That you take like a dog brush to and you shred it.
Yes.
So that it like falls apart.
Yes.
That's what I want. This is what I want in my life.
If you're feeling lazy, Joanne's usually carries some in their Halloween section that's already like de-stressed.
No, I like distressing it myself. It's fun.
I know.
I want to shred it myself.
Shred it.
And then I obviously have to have like my arm snake and my little bug.
I make jokes about running over one of my future costumes with my car because I need to make it dirty. So.
Right. Oh yeah. No, this thing will have to be like tea dyed and coffee dyed and all sorts of stuff because it's a burlap sack. It's supposed to look like a burlap sack, and then I have to have like a whole body stocking because Oogie Boogie is like a variation of shades of like a light pale green to skin tone. And I don't want just flat green, so I'm going to want a skin tone suit that I can, like, sponge green onto so it looks more like a mossy, you know, because I don't want flat green. And then, of course, there's, like, tights over like in the picture. I'm like, what is this?
It'd be all right.
So I have to figure out like how I want it to work, but I might transition to working on Oogie Boogie so that I can book a photo shoot, because why not?
And this one actually has a deadline, which was another problem we talked about in the self-care episode. Because if they're doing it in the fall, then you have to have it photo shoot ready.
Tentative deadline for Hinoto would be like December, but its real deadline is more like May, so I'm not motivated. I think I've been working on her for too long and I need to like step back.
I could feel that. I get bored sometimes.
It's been about a year because I started it right after I finished Harley, which is also probably why I'm not terribly far, considering she should be done at this point. At least the sewing part should be done, but...
You say should, but that's just how you feel she should be.
I know.
It's not like a hard and fast rule.
But like right now, I'm more motivated to like look at booking photo shoots and doing some of that again and trying to get myself more back into that like performance creative headspace, which it's now finally pretty much good to go for that. The vaccine rate is decent in the United States. It's not great where I live, but it's decent.
Well, and typically, if you're doing a photo shoot, you don't have too many people up in your space anyway.
No, exactly. Still not comfortable with doing, like, the mass call photo shoots, but... And I know that a lot of other people are kind of thinking about this, too, because, like, cons really still aren't happening. Like, kind of are, but at, like, a, like, really reduced rate. A lot of people have turned to both self-photography and shooting with, like, non-con photographers during this time. Today's episode is actually about looking for a photographer.
Womp womp.
Both
like
at
that
a con
segue.
and not at a con. Because we've kind of learned some really interesting things as we've been looking for photographers not at conventions that you may not think about. I certainly didn't. That might be handy info for you. Photographers have always been a big thing with cosplay in the last, like, 10 years. And it's been really weird not having photo shoots.
Well, and I think about photography at cons, like, back when we first started, a really, really long time ago. And, like, you were excited if Kevin Lillard took your picture and put it on a fan's view.
That's right. And then we all had our disposable cameras otherwise.
Yep. And then if you were super lucky, you might end up in the cosplay section of An American Magazine.
That's right.
That was con photography back in the day.
Yep. And now it's like full on production.
Yeah, it's like its own industry
shoots
now.
And stuff. But I mean, regardless of where you're getting your shoots from, there's a few things that you're always going to want to look for and think of. And that's going to be your price versus your product, when you're going to get your photos, and then recommendations from others. This is both going to be in terms of quality and safety. So we're going to go through all of this stuff, as well as professionalism and then style.
Well, and the other thing with safety, if you want more info, we covered this topic pretty heavily at the end of season 1. So go ahead and take a look back at that too.
That would be the Shifty Shutterbugs episode on more relationship to photography con safety. All of this is going to kind of vary depending on where you're getting your photo shoots. So we're going to look at our at-con shoots, which is what we're familiar with, and then we'll move into our location or our studio shoots, which I'm starting to favor. I'm not going to lie. And we will talk about why. Yeah, right?
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, there's definitely there's a big difference. So at-con shoots are the shoots you do at or during a convention. So sometimes they have a location, but typically that location is near the convention, or you're only doing that shoot because of the convention. That's kind of also considered an at-con photo shoot. Colossal Con's one of the more popular ones for this. That's half the reason we go there, is to do photo shoots with people. So something you want to take into consideration with at-con shoots is the turnaround for your photos.
Well, and there's a lot of variables that go into this, because you have to think of how many cons, especially if you're in the height of con season, how many cons has this photographer gone to recently? How many cons are they going to in the near future? How many shoots are they booking over the course of one weekend? This is their bread and butter. A lot of photographers will cram as many shoots as they physically can into one space. Whether or not that's a good idea is debatable.
So you have to be willing to wait up to 3 months for your photos.
And some people have waited a year or longer.
Some people never get them.
It's true.
Yeah, and that's especially a problem if you paid for your shoot. So if you're doing a free shoot, you got, like, no say in when you're going to get your photos because they did it for free. Even paid shoots, the average for an at-con shoot is about 90 days.
If all the parties are being professional, you will have a conversation about this, and they will let you know. Maybe you'll see a preview, like a quick shot on social media right after the con. Or, you know, maybe we'll have your non-edited gallery ready. And then some photographers will do all edits, and some will just have you pick which ones you want edited. That's going to depend on your certain photographer choice and what their contract says.
Time is of the essence. Definitely make sure you find out what the turnaround is before you shoot with the photographer. Because if you need your photos like ASAP and somebody typically takes 90 days, they may not be the right photographer.
Or maybe you can offer to pay a rush fee to get your stuff moved up.
That is also sometimes the case, yes.
Yes, because a lot of people are willing to... It would be like working overtime, essentially. They'll do their normal stuff in order, but maybe these other people that absolutely need this first and want their whole set done. And some of them might be willing to do one just as a favor. Like we did that the last time we went to Colossal Con. We said, hey, we would really love to have a photo of the two of us in these costumes so we can send it to these people for a promo thing. And the photographer said, no problem, and got it pretty quickly to us so we could do that.
You also have to remember that most con photographers, this isn't their full-time job. They probably are doing a different job during the week. This is a side gig. So they aren't probably working on your photos 24/7.
My photos.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not like a wedding photographer where you just paid them like $3,000, you know, to photograph your event. Like the con photographers are not working on this day after day after day. So you have to keep that in mind when booking at a convention as well. That this is likely a side gig. Whether they're a full-time photographer or not, the con photography is likely a side gig.
If you've never been to a con and been photographed there before, it's a gamble because con spaces are just completely unpredictable. Now, hopefully your photographer has been there before and usually they'll have a pretty good idea of stuff, but I mean, the lighting sucks. There could be people in your space. You can't really make somebody leave a public area.
And I've seen some really great photographers go and try to shoot at a convention and it not go well because con spaces are just really, you don't have control over your environment. And it makes it really, really hard to shoot.
Well, and a lot of cons won't let you carry your professional photography kit around. So unless you have like a whole group of people that are, you know, carrying lights and stuff, you might not be able to do your full setup. And especially the indoor lighting is usually awful.
Anime Central's lighting is atrocious.
I know, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of that really pretty wall that's downstairs in the Hyatt. And you're like, man, this would be great for photos. And you're like, nope, it sure isn't.
I'll locate the photo of Erd in front of that wall because I know I have one. And yeah, you like that downstairs area of the Hyatt is gorgeous, but the like in the downstairs portion of the convention center too, with the waterfalls and stuff.
Yes.
But that lighting is so yellow. And it's so
yellow.
Awful. It's so bad. Like, I don't care how good of a photographer you are. That lighting is atrocious.
Yep.
There's not a great way to balance it. Like, you'd have to do a lot of work post. And I think that's something we forget about, too, is, you know, con photographers are doing a lot of work post, typically, because the lighting is so atrocious. So the editing can sometimes take a little longer. You don't have as much control of your environment.
Yes. Yeah, if you're not getting the quality on the front end, if you're going to get quality product, it has to come out the back end. So...
Well, and I want to say one of the reasons I'm starting to like this not con shooting is at con shoots are extraordinarily stressful. It's like a race against time every time. I don't care how well you prepare, it's a race against time. Like, something's going to go wrong, and you're going to be running and struggling to get to your shoot on time.
You mean if it can go wrong, it will go wrong?
Oh, yeah. Or you're rushing because you're squeezing a shoot in between, like, your craftsmanship judging and when you have to be back, you know, for the green room. Or You're trying to race against a certain time of day because you're trying to get golden hour and you're having trouble getting through the hallways or your photographer's late. Like, it's just, oh my, it's so stressful. And then you're expected to perform when you get there after being super stressed out or tired because you're barely sleeping because you're at a con. But at not con, all of that goes away.
Yep.
And all you have to do is focus on the fact that you have a photo shoot.
Weird.
Your photographer is likely to be on time because you're probably going to them at their place of business.
Right. Or a predetermined public space.
Right. Which, I mean, we've had out of con shoots be late and stuff too. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes when you're working in an unpredictable environment, things will still go wrong. So if you're shooting outside of like their personal studio, still sometimes things will go wrong.
It happens.
Like, we know that one of the benefits to con, obviously, is that the photographer rates are going to be significantly lower than they ever would be if you went to someone's studio.
Well, and I think part of that's a combo of the fact that you have a lot more amateur photographers that are just kind of trying to pay their way to go to the con.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have people that are able to do a lot of shoots back to back to back to back. So they're able to keep their prices lower because they have the quantity of shoots to make the money that they wanted for the weekend.
Well, and that is something that gets photographers into a hole a lot of the time, is overbooking, which is how shoots end up starting late, or you end up with really unprofessional things happening during your photo shoots. Because we've had some very interesting things happen with photographers for photo shoots at conventions.
Photographers showing up either drunk or hungover. Party con looking at you.
Yep.
The photographer, like you said, they have way too many shoots going on, so they should end up showing up late, or you just don't see anything forever.
We've had multiple unusable photo shoots occur, both paid and unpaid, where the photos are so poor that there's really no way to save them, which is a huge problem. If you are overbooking yourself so much that you're going to be so exhausted to do these shoots and you're going to return product to people that is way below par, like, you need to rethink that. It's not cool when you're paying.
Well, and on the flip side of that too, that doesn't mean you need to rush everything, because you want to make sure that all of your quality you're putting out is good. So it's kind of like a lot of people that pay for shoots, I feel like, are in like a catch-22 where they want their photos right away, but they want them done well.
Right.
And with these hobbyists and these people that do it just as a side gig in addition to their regular jobs, even if they are really good photographers, you don't want to rush them because you don't want them to rush to get your product done and have it be subpar to what it would have been if they would have taken their time.
Well, and you also don't want, as the subject, to be rushed by the photographer either, which we've also had happen because they're so overbooked.
If they show up like late to your session and they're like, oh, well, I really need to get to this next one.
I've also had that particularly happen when you can tell right off the bat that the photographer is not interested in the subject matter that you are presenting.
Yeah, that's like the worst.
That's typically when I've seen that at con is, you know, you're paying them so they'll book whatever, but they're not particularly interested in like the anime or whatever that you're dressed in. And so they're trying to rush you through because they want to get to the person that they're interested in. That's a real big problem with these group photo shoots, which we'll talk about later in this episode, where you will get rushed through because you're not the person they're interested in. That can be an issue. And then just, the photographer being late, which honestly happens with the model too, because you're trying to move through a convention. There's hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, depending on where you're at, it could be.
So it can happen where like you completely miss your shoot because you can't get there, or, you know, the photographer completely misses it because they can't get there. And it's a lot of stress, which is why I'm starting to enjoy this concept of shooting not at the convention, because it's less stress. Besides the less stress, some of the other advantages to outside of convention shoots are that you can do a lot more planning for your photo shoot. There's typically a lot more collaboration involved between the cosplayer and the photographer.
Yeah.
Than there is for at con shoots.
Anything, like you said, for like the planning, like if you want to have a specific location, typically your photographer in a professional setting outside of a con is going to go and scout locations. They might have a catalog in the back of their mind of locations that they've been to previously that might work for your concept. You're going to talk about your concept a lot more and kind of what you're wanting to get out of the shoot. If you want to do set pieces or backdrop pieces, that's going to be a lot easier to bring to an away from con shoot where you're going to actually have room to set that kind of stuff up. Whereas most cons would be like, no, you can't put that there.
Yeah, when I worked with Infinity Spiral Photography, he and I kind of discussed what we both wanted to get out of Barrel, and he went out and scoped out locations that were going to work in the area and what would work with his lighting and the options that he wanted to do. And, you know, and it wasn't like planned super far in advance, maybe like 3 weeks, but that was still way more discussion than I've ever had with any other photographer about like concepts. That like concept portion of a photo shoot and having a little bit more of a performance aspect to it, which is hard to do for at con because the photographers don't really have time to get to know like your subject matter if they don't already know it. You do have to consider if you're going to be shooting on location or at a studio that you are typically going to have a higher cost than what you would see at a convention. So typically professional photographers, from what I've seen, at least in my area, this probably goes higher if you're in a bigger city. It can be anywhere from about 100 to 300. A lot of these shoots do include print rights, so you have the right to use the photo as you see fit. The turnaround is typically much faster, and the quality is typically higher.
Well, and typically that's going to have a lot to do with the fact that you're paid, like, they already have... Professional photographers already have like a number in their head of how many shoots they can do within a given time frame and what kind of time they're going to need to edit those. So they're only going to dedicate that much time to, I mean, they're going to do it until it's done, but they have a pretty good handle on it's going to take me this long to do the shoot, this long to do my edits afterwards and get everything back, because they want to make sure that they're clear of your product before they move on to other shoots, because otherwise they're just going to be perpetually behind, which is bad for business.
And that's a cycle that con photographers get in quite a bit. Going con to con to con to con to con and not really getting caught up with that backlog. So what are you going to look for in a photographer that doesn't shoot cosplay? Because it is very unlikely that you're going to find someone that primarily shoots cosplay. I got lucky with Infinity Spiral, happened to be local, and does primarily shoot cosplay, but most photographers that are going to have a studio and are going to be in the area for you to shoot with are probably not primarily shooting cosplay photos, so it's kind of like, what are you going to look for that's going to work well? So I found that photographers that do well with more like storyline looking photos, so something that more tells a story, does do really well with cosplay. So like if your photographer's photos are more like what you would see in a magazine, that's probably not going to translate well with cosplay unless that's the look you're going for.
Like, you want your photo to tell a story. We're cosplaying typically as a character, whether it's from a source media or an original concept. There's an intention behind the character and the costume, and you want that to translate really well. And if you're just having somebody that does just like normal like senior photos or whatever, they're just used to shooting people and not necessarily like an idea.
Take a look and see if they've ever done any like costumed or themed shoots, because that might give you an idea of what it might look like if they do a cosplay shoot. So like Honey and Ether that I kind of mentioned earlier that I'm looking at shooting Oogie Boogie shoots primarily boudoir, but they do a lot of themed photo shoots and like costume themed photo shoots as well. And so by looking at their style, where it's a little bit on that dark side, which is good for like a pinup style Oogie Boogie, this, you know, their way in which they translate their photography would work really well with that subject matter, but may not work so well with like if I wanted Hikaru to be shot in her bright pink princess dress. You know? So you got to look at like, how is this going to translate with the style of the photographer? What tends to translate well? You also may want to look for a photographer that doesn't only shoot professional models, especially if you need direction, because someone who is used to shooting a professional model isn't going to be used to directing you, because the model just typically comes in and does their thing. So you may want to look and see what variety of people they've shot to have an idea, and ask your photographer, how much direction are you willing to give me if you think you're going to need that. I noticed that con photographers do a lot of directing, but a lot of photographers in other areas don't, because the person who is getting their photo taken is also a professional, where in the cosplay situation, that's not always the case. So you kind of got to keep that in mind. And kind of like I mentioned before, if they only do fashion photography, unless that's what the look you're going for, that may not be what's going to translate well. You also have to take that into consideration if they primarily do boudoir. We've had multiple instances where we've shot with people who primarily do boudoir, and they've turned our non-boudoir photo shoot into a boudoir photo shoot because they only know how to pose you that way. And they don't know how to direct people in any other form of poses. And then you're like, yeah, this is not the shoot I wanted.
Something that you might consider, even if they do primarily do a lot of fashion, is if they do shoots for alternative fashions.
Yes.
Whether that might be pinup or goth or Lolita, grunge. I mean, there's so many different options as far as non-mainstream fashions go, because typically those are going to be very concept oriented and storytelling photos as well. So you might take a look and see what their work in those fields happen to look like.
There are a lot of photographers around who will do trade for photo for cosplay because they want to try it out, but make sure that you're still acting professional, because this is their job, this is their profession, and you have to respect that. But there are quite a few out there who will do that because they want to try out the cosplay thing. And typically, the environment's just going to be easier to deal with, so the photographer has more control.
You don't have to worry about a lot of random congoers going behind you or in front of you.
Oh, right. And then if you also want to hire any other professionals, like a makeup or a hair artist, it's much easier to do it this way as well.
Yes, because you're more likely to find a makeup or a hair artist in your area. And your photographer probably has people that they work with regularly that they could recommend to you if you don't happen to know one yourself.
So now we're going to talk about another popular type of off-location shoot known as the group shoot event.
Gross.
Our experience with this is not good. Typically what these are is it's a collection of cosplayers and photographers who are getting together to do one big photo event. So everybody chips in to pay for the location and the event, and then in return, each cosplayer is supposed to get X amount of photo sets. Whatever that might be. It might not be one per every photographer, but typically there's a set number of sets you're supposed to get. The idea behind this is to allow photographers to meet new models and vice versa, and kind of get a variety of photos with one costume for one set price. However, our experience with this was terrible. Yeah, it did not work out well for us at all. We were supposed to have 5 photo shoots and we ended up with 2. So that was fun. Yeah, we did one at this cool old house, and it should have been really great, but we missed shooting with the photographer due to time management on the photographer's part. We missed one photographer we were booked with. We got 2 unusable shoots at that photo shoot. Completely unusable due to lighting. We got 2 really great shoots back. One with Anthony Nugent photo. Those are Helsing bath shots, which are great. And then we got our other really great Helsing photos from our friend Court. We got few photos, but high quality between the 2 of them. However, the problem was we were promised 5 photo shoots. We ended up with 2. So in the end, it really wasn't worth the cost. We could have just paid Anthony and Court for 2 separate photo shoots that were longer and probably gotten everything that we needed from those 2 photographers. Not had to spend the entire day there and paid for a place to stay overnight. For us, it definitely was not worth it. So what you really want to do is make sure that if you are doing a group event like this, that you're going to one that's well established, such as like Chizucon or Light Fantastic, because those have been run multiple times. Make sure that what the event coordinator is promising can actually be done. Because that was one thing that we ran into, is we didn't really make sure that what we were being promised could be done. And then when we kind of got there and looked at the schedule, we went like, there's no way this is going to work. Like, there's no way. Because the problem is, there were a couple models in particular that the photographers liked more than other models that were available. And so they were getting longer shoots, which is also a huge problem with a group shoot format.
Well, and then in addition to that, they were getting more shoots?
Yes, because every photographer wanted to shoot them.
Yeah, and then they would work with the same photographer more than once. This particular location had a whole like costume area in the basement that was rented out also, so people that did not bring their own costumes could kind of piece something together. That ended up being a thing where the quote-unquote more popular models that were there just got way more camera time than the other people that were there. I can think of two in particular that pretty much got at least double the amount of time as any other model did, which is a problem when you have people that aren't getting all their shoots in. It would be different if everybody got their shoots and then they got more, just because the photographer wanted to, but if not everybody got everything, then that's a problem because we all paid the same amount of money to be there.
We also had a big issue at that particular shoot with the photographers not wanting to shoot both of us at the same time, which they had agreed to beforehand.
Yeah, because we had to apply to go to this.
Yeah, and we noted that we would be shooting together.
And then the photographers juried their selection for who they wanted to shoot.
Like, we had one photographer through the entire shoot complain the entire time that he had to shoot both of us. Like,
yes.
Literally, while we were being shot, was complaining that he had to do both of us. I think we only did that photo shoot for like 15 minutes because we were like, we're done with you.
Well, and that was one of them that none of the photos came back because the lighting was awful.
Which we have discovered too, like as we've been looking for photographers locally as well, no one wants to shoot more than one person at a time. I get why. Like, I get it. I've had a photographer explain it to me because it's more faces to pay attention to. It's harder to light. Like, it's harder to get like one good photo with all the people, so you're returning less photos because there's a lot of people in it. But I've had people not even want to shoot two people at a time.
Well, and most people that do two people are used to doing just couples. So if we're doing a costume set that is not a couple, then that's a problem.
So that's been an adventure, I will say, in trying to book photo shoots away from conventions. The photographers are very much like, what, there's two of you? You would have thought I asked for the moon when I wanted to shoot 4 of us for a photo shoot at one point. They were just all like, what? I can't shoot 4 people? I'm like, okay. And so that actually was probably the biggest surprise I got when looking for non-con shoots, is they really don't want to do groups. Which is probably one of the biggest downsides to non-convention shoots, is they just really, really don't want to do groups.
I think that's why you have like specific people that refuse to do wedding shoots and refuse to do family shoots, where they'll only do like either couple photos, baby photos, senior pictures, that kind of thing. They don't want to do anything else that actually involves like a crowd.
So that is a downside that we have run into. We've had to do some convincing to get people to shoot more than one person. And it's not like we're even asking like for the individual rate, like you can raise the rate because there's 2 of us. Like, that's fine. I know the other concern typically is that the more people involved, the harder it is to return photos because they can't decide what they want, which for us, we always laugh about because it's like, well, we're going to pick them together, so it's not going to matter. Like,
yeah, we always pick the photos
and
together.
Like, when you shoot us, it's kind of like shooting a couple. We are going to pick the photos together and decide together what photos we want because we want to use them together, not separately.
Which is why we're taking photos together.
But I understand that a lot of people will take photos together because their costumes match, but they don't tend to work together.
Yeah.
And so I can understand that, like, they may have different intentions for the photo shoot and want different things out of it. And so that could get more complicated for the photographer. But in that case, you just make an arrangement with the photographer that this person gets X and this person gets X. And if they have to pay extra, that's what you have to do. But I get that so many photographers have had such poor experiences with groups that they don't want to do them. I get it. but we like to shoot together, so hopefully we'll find someone that will let us. It does have a lot to do with lighting, facial expressions, and then you also have levels that you have to be concerned about and blocking the other person, and you need more space to get two people into the shot, so like I get it. But photographers, we need you to shoot us together. So
please
can we work that out? Please and thank you. And no, we are not looking to shoot each other together in a boudoir shoot, because that is the only time so far that people have been willing to shoot two people at once. And I'm like, no, that's not the type of shoot we're looking for.
No thanks.
Sorry. That's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah. If you're asking us to do a boudoir shoot, it's not going to happen.
No, don't ask us. We'll call you.
Yes. Don't call us. We'll call you.
So you do also, for out-of-con shoots, you do have to have a higher budget because you may have to have transportation to the location. You are probably going to pay more. So you're not relying on like, well, I already have this hotel room at X con and I'm already in this area. Like, you're actually going to have to physically go to that area just to shoot.
So if it's not local to you, then that might involve either gas or parking or a hotel room to stay.
I'd like to go and shoot with some of our Chicago photographer people that we know, and that will involve getting a hotel room and travel because we won't be doing it during a convention, most likely.
If you choose to hire some of the other artists like hair or makeup, then that's going to be an additional cost on top of everything.
If you are someone who just wants a ton of photos back, then a professional photographer is probably not for you, because in their case, you're going to get less photos but higher quality. If you just want a ton of photos, get a friend of yours to take photos with your phone.
Yeah, especially with the way that cell phone cameras are these days.
If you're just wanting like a ton of photos, then that professional photographer is probably not who you're going to want to book. And yeah, you can do your own photos. I mean, I've been working on that because I don't have a budget to shoot with a professional photographer for $300 every time I have a costume. I don't have that.
Tripod,
So,
light stand.
yeah, I've been working on it.
Golden hour is really good too if you go outside.
You can shoot at golden hour, find a friend, grab a cell phone.
Cell phone timers work for that too.
They do. The couple of shoots that I've done at home, I've just used the timers. I don't have a very big space to shoot in, but hey, it works. Go watch some TikToks. They've got all the tricks.
If you want something more extensive, there's plenty on YouTube about it too.
I figure most people listening to our podcast are probably more familiar with TikTok than YouTube at this point.
I mean, that's fair. I just feel like some of these concepts probably take more than 30 seconds to go over.
Nothing takes more than 30 seconds. It's fine.
Instructables, remember that?
Yes. This is fine.
This is fine.
So in general, if you're at a con or not at a con, what should you do with a photographer?
So many things. References, if you can check those out. That's a thing.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure your photographer is safe and trustworthy and all that jazz.
Check the internet. Social media is a great thing. Ask your friends. Has anybody worked with this person before? What was your experience? You could also just search for them on the internet using their name or their handles, and you'll probably find something. And not just the curated image that they put on the internet. So you'll see more than whatever they want you to see. You'll actually get a full spectrum that way.
You may also want to consider a contract, especially if you're concerned about your photos being returned or if you're doing a boudoir shoot.
Honestly, I would say most people should at least sign some sort of contract anyway, so that all parties are aware of how photos are going to be used. Even though you pay for the photo shoot, your photographer technically owns your photos unless they release the rights to you. So you're going to want that if you're wanting to use it, whether it's for print or social media, especially if you're wanting to sell it. If you're wanting to sell your prints, you're going to want to make sure you have that in writing.
I don't think we saw a contract for a con photographer till within the last year, because a lot of them weren't doing it at all.
That's because they just were people with cameras.
Yep, pretty much. Contracts protect the photographer as well as protecting you, especially if you are having certain photos taken that you don't want to be out in the public. And if you help your photographer, that will also end up making your photo shoot better. Help them understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can do your homework here and let them know and be like, hey, this is kind of what I'm going for. I really like this style that you did here. Or here's some pictures. I would like to recreate this pose. They can help you, but you have to communicate.
Give them information about your character. Let them know what you're trying to get out of the shoot so you get what you want, because they can't read your mind.
They cannot read your mind. That is not something they learn in photography school.
No.
Or on TikTok.
Well, and you need to know your budget, because you should respect the fact that a professional photographer should get paid.
Yes.
Like, your costume might be super duper awesome, but that doesn't mean that they should have to shoot you for free.
They are providing a service. You should pay them.
Now, there are some sort of etiquette standards around that, such as if the photographer approaches you about shooting a particular costume, then they actually should be doing it for free. And if you approach a photographer about shooting a particular costume, you kind of need to expect to pay. It's very rare in the cosplay community that the photographer is going to pay you to shoot you.
Very rare.
That is a thing that happens for models and probably for some more famous cosplayers. But in general, typically, if the photographer is coming to you, you may get the shoot for free, but you're probably not going to get paid. You're welcome to try.
And as a rule of thumb, anytime that we're offered a TFP shoot and we have a TFP shoot, we always, I wouldn't necessarily call it tip, but we usually give a gift of some sort, whether it's buying dinner or like a gift card, just something, you know, monetary. It might not be what you would normally pay for it, but just something that says, hey, thanks. I really, you know, appreciate you taking the time to do this for me. Every time we've done it, the person said it was not needed, but much appreciated. And a lot of those people we worked with more than once.
And probably the biggest thing that happens with photo shoots is not asking for a timeline for your photos to be returned and how many. Ask beforehand.
Communicate like adults.
This will just prevent issues down the line when you're getting frustrated because, you know, it's been 6 weeks and you haven't gotten your photos back, or you get your photos back and you only have 10 and you thought you were going to get like 50. Communicate with your photographer about what their timeline looks like and how many photos to expect so that you're not disappointed.
And ideally, your photographer, if for some reason they did not get as many photos, they are running behind for some reason, hopefully, as a professional, they will communicate that information to you.
If you have any fun photography or photo shoot related stories, please send them to us either through our DM or at podcastscs@gmail.com.
We would love to hear from you. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
We have lots of fun photography shoot stories. There's a lot of fun things that happen behind the scenes during a photo shoot to make the photos work that look absolutely ridiculous in person.
Yes. Well, and my favorite is always when there is an assistant, because typically they just get slap happy and it's a good time.
That's only when I drink too much during a boudoir shoot.
No, we've had some other ones that were pretty good.
And when you're trying to desperately create height differences between characters.
Oh, that one's always fun. Especially when you're the same height.
Yes, that's always a problem for us because we are exactly the same height.
Pretty much.
And I typically need to be taller than you. When we do Link and Zelda, you're supposed to be taller than me. Link is shorter than her.
I mean, I'll have a heel on. It'll be fine.
There we go. Then you can be taller than me.
Uh-huh.
So if you have any fun photography stories, please send them to us because we would love to share them in a listener's episode.
It's true story.
And if you have any other fun tales you want to share with us, send them our way because we are putting together some more listener episodes.
Well, I think that is about it for today. Thanks for joining us.
Co-host, do you have anything to include?
Do you have anything to say, bud? We're going to be shy now.
Nope, he doesn't have anything to say.
Now that I'm calling him out, he's being absolutely quiet as a mouse.
we talked about giving him his own microphone because before we started, he was really interested in Ash's microphone.
Yes, he was wanting to touch the pop filter and pull on my earbuds and just chat.
So we might need to give him the broken microphone.
Oh, no, I got a replacement for it because it was under warranty.
Oh, sweet. Oh, I have a broken blue snowball. We can give him that. We'll set him up his own little, we'll give him a pretend computer and microphone, and he can have his own little station.
Sure. It'd be great. Just as soon as he can sit up by himself.
Well, yeah. He's got a bit still.
Or I could put it on his high chair.
That's true, we could.
All right, guys. We're going to get out of here. Again, I'm Ash.
Hi, Mel.
We are Lovey Cosplay.
And this is Shit Cosplayers Say. You've been listening to Shit Cosplayers Say, an LVC production. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Podcast SCS. Our website is lavicosplay.com. Have a fun, crazy con or cosplay-related story, absurd cosplay question, or just something in general to share with us? Email us at podcastscs@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should.